Shalom, shalom. I want to begin by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the elders and to the apostles of Great Millstone, and in our respect to the brothers that are out there pushing and spreading the truth, which is the gospel of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai to the vocalists of the world. Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, just wanted to do a quick video touching on the subject of UFOs, and I have an article as to how the United States government have now voted on an amendment, okay, to open a new branch of national security, national air defense, specifically designed to watch UFOs. All right, and it's right here. All right, it says House approves amendment to create systems for reporting UFOs. The House approved an amendment to the annual defense spending bill on Wednesday that would establish a secure system for reporting unidentified aerial phenomena, which is commonly known as UFOs. See, for the longest, people would not take the scripture seriously. People did not take the visions of the prophets in the scripture seriously. They scorned, they laughed at it, you know. But now it's a serious matter. Now people are afraid, you know. Says the system set up by the amendment would receive reports of any event relating to unidentified aerial phenomena, in addition to any related activity from the government, federal contractors, or programs. The amendment, sponsored by Representative Mike Gallagher and Ruben Gallego, if I'm pronouncing that right, was passed by voice vote as part of a block of amendments to the House version of the National Defense Authorization Act. The House is expected to vote on and pass the full NDAA this week. All right. And this article came out on July 13th, 2022. So it's very, very recent. All right. So this is get it right now. Ezekiel, first chapter. Ezekiel chapter 1, starting from verse 1. It says, Now it came to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, and the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Kebar, that the heavens were open, and I saw visions of God. When you look at that word God, it says Alahayim. So Ezra saw the vision of the powers. Okay, let's get it right now. Right, Alahayim, which means the powers. All right, which means angels included. Why can't I get this? You know. You know what? You'd rather see it. I don't know what's wrong with my phone. But you see it right here, right? Of God, and it says what? Alahayim. Okay, it says right there. So get back to it. It says in the fifth day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jeconiah's captivity. So now this is the time and the place where Ezra saw the vision. Now this is when the Babylonian overthrew the kingdom of Judah. They took, they exiled certain people into Babylon, and Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel, was one of those people that were exiled. And at this point, he's at the place where he calls the river of Kebar. So continuing, verse 3 says, The word of the Lord came expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzai, and the land of the Chaldeans by the river Kebar, and the hand of the Lord was there upon him. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof was the color of amber, and out of the midst of the fire. So he saw, looked, and behold, a whirlwind, right? Which is also another way of talking about a chariot. So he said the whirlwind, it was a great cloud, okay? Like we see here.
What the fuck is that? Like, that is the craziest shit I've ever seen in my life, bro. It's like, it's so cool. What is that?
Okay. This is
What the
what
fuck is
this is the kind of
that?
things that he
Like,
was
that is
seeing.
the craziest shit I've
All
ever
right.
seen in my life.
And a fire enfolding itself. So these were the lights that were coming from the chariots. I don't know if brothers can see it properly, but brothers can have good eyes. You can see this. And this was the video that the brother Bakwar posted, a while back. Where he saw he saw a UFO, and while he was videoing it, a stranger came up to him, and the stranger said, what are you looking at? And the brother said, we're looking at UFOs. And then the stranger said, oh, that's crazy because I saw one last night. And then he also, gave him a footage, and this was the footage that the stranger took. So now we have an idea, we have a picture in our head of what Ezekiel is describing. So a great cloud and a fire enfolding itself, okay? So which is the light and the brightness was about it, right? So the lights, okay? And out of the midst thereof as the color of amber. So the color of the lights, because the lights they differ, and in this case, Ezra was seeing the light as like an orangey type color. Let me see if I can get this one right here. So now when you see this one, chariot kind of shoots up. Right now it's sort of white. So right now it was white. Now you're gonna see that the color is now what, an amber. You see the red dots, but the red dots are moving in circles. Brothers can see it. Whether you're looking at the center or you're looking at the sides, it's all moving in circles. So this is what you know. This is the kind of things that he was seeing. Verse 5. Also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of four living creatures, and these are the angels, and this was their appearance. Right now, the description that the manner in which he's going to describe the angels are literal. Okay, this is actually how he saw the angels, but you know, um, their faces and how they looked also has meaning to it. Okay, so it says, out of the midst thereof, verse 5, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of four living creatures. Highlight four living creatures, and this was the appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Okay, so they were humanoid, and everyone had four faces, and everyone had four wings. Okay, we jump down to verse 10, it's going to touch on their faces. It says, as for the likeness of their faces, they had four. They four had the face of a man, and the face of a lion on the right side, and they four had the face of an ox on the left, and they four also had the face of an eagle. So the face of a man, like again, these are literal, right? He's seeing this is exactly how they look like. But the face represents intelligence, which is a man, right? And the face of a lion, sort of like courage, right? And the face of an ox, which is a projection of strength, and also the face of an eagle, like what? Um, you know, majesty, like flight and all, what makes them like exaltation, like you know I'm trying to find a better word. I'm lacking the proper word to describe it, but yeah, these things had the meaning towards it. They exactly how they look like. Okay, Ezekiel was looking at them as how he describes them. Ezekiel saw them exactly how he's describing them right now, but the faces of them, it had they all had meaning towards it. But we come back down to verse 7. It says, and their feet were straight feet, and the soles of their feet were the soles of a cow's foot. And this goes into the boots that they were wearing, the kind of footwear that they had on, and it looked like it looked like a calf's foot. The way that the boots were designed, and they sparkle like the color of burnished brass. Okay, so they had a brownish hue about them. The angels, they look kind of they look like a so-called black man, all right? But they were, let me try. I think I lost the verse. Right, but they were sparkling. Verse 8 it says, and they had the hand of a man under their wings on their four sides, and they four had their faces and their wings. Again, this is all literal. Their wings were joined one to another. They turned not when they went every one straight forward. When you look at this different translation, the one that mostly makes sense is CSB, which is their wings were touching. The creatures did not turn as they moved, each one went straight ahead. Let me try to get another one. Right. ESV says their wings touch one another, right? So they had four wings, and the four wings were like, it was joined together. All right. It was joined one to another. So this is not to say that the angels, there were four different angels, and then they all had their wings, but their wings were attached to another angel's wings and all that. Nah, that's not actually how it's been, that's not what he's saying. And then this part where it says they turned not when they went everyone straight forward, which is talking about how they freely moved in a three-dimensional space. They were hovering and they moved, they did not maneuver around like a man did, like how if you wanted to turn around, you turn your whole face and you move forward. That's not how the angels move. When they wanted to go forward, they straight forward. When they wanted to go back, they go back. They wanted to go up, they go up. They were hovering all over the place. Verse 10, as for the likeness of their faces, we covered that. And verse 11, it says, thus were their faces, and their wings were stretched upwards. Two wings of every one were joined one to another, and two covered their bodies. So their wings were stretched upward. When you look at the word upward, it just means like I'm gonna get it right now. It just means upright, above, higher, above, yeah. Get it right now. Yeah, so it was stretched out, um, and two cover their body. So they have one set of wings which is stretched out, and another set of wings that covered sort of wrapped around their body, um, in a clothely fashion. Verse 18 it says, and they went everyone straight forward, whither the Spirit was to go, they went, and they turned out when they went. So now it's talking about when the angels moved, the chariots that was described, that was mentioned in the fourth chapter. The angels were like they were spiritually in tune with the chariots. Whenever they go this way, the chariot will follow them. And let me get it right now. Right. Verse 12 says, and they went everyone straight forward, whither the Spirit was to go. They went, and they turned not when they went. Right. So the chariot they were in tune with the chariots. It was almost like telepathy. As for the likeness of the four living creatures, their appearance was like the burning of coal of fire. So at this point, the living creatures is not talking about the angels, but talking about the it's talking about the chariots. And the reason, right, the most probably, the reason why the chariots are called living creatures is because the manner in which they move is not like an ordinary object, okay? Like how a rain falls, like a raindrop falls predictably. Their movements were not predictable as a shooting star, they will zip around like Ezekiel is going to mention, when you see this thing, when you see something like that, you're not gonna think you see how it's moving. You're not gonna think lightly of it. So the living creatures, as for the likeness of the living creatures, come on, Verse 13, as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, and like the appearance of lamps, it went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. All right, so it's talking about the chariots. Again, the appearance was like burning coals of fire, which is like the kind of light, like when you read the book of Exodus, the scripture says that when we were in the wilderness, the Lord led Israel by day by a cloud and by night a fire. And by the fire, it wasn't like a literal, um, it wasn't like a literal fire on like a torch. But as a matter of fact, it was like the chariot, and the light that came off of it, it looks like what? A burning coal of fire. And like the appearance of lamps. And it went up and down, right? So the light's all about it. And it went up and down among the living creatures, right? Again, following the angels. So at this point, this living creature right here is talking about the angels. You just got to be able to know the difference. It can be kind of confusing, but it really isn't. All right. So let me see. Oh, come on. All right. Um, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning, which also touches on Second Ezra, where it talks about when Yahushua came and the people came up to fight against him, he neither lifted up his hands, but I saw as it were a blast of fire and lightning and tempest coming out of his mouth. Okay, and these chariots, and so it's talking about the lasers that was shooting forth from the chariots. All right. So Second Ezra's the 13th chapter, just to hit the point on it and keep the lesson going. Second Ezra 13, verse 11. No, verse 12. It says, afterwards I saw the same man come down from the mountain talking about a chariot. The same man talking about, hold on. No, let me hit another voice. Right, verse 11. It says, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire. Uh, let's get a few, verse 10. It says, but only as I saw that he sent out of his mouth, and as it had been a blast of fire out of his lips, a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempest, okay, which is um, just as how is said in Ezekiel, the first chapter, verse, let's see, right, verse 14, the flash of lightning, okay, so this is talking about the sparks and the tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them every one, right? So that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and the smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid, right? So verse 15 says, now as I beheld the living creatures, and I was talking about the chariots. So when he took a closer look at the chariots, he says, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creature, with his four faces. Right. So the one wheel, which is one chariot, which was by the angel, it says the appearance of it was the appearance of the wheel, and their works was like unto the color of beryl. And they four had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. So like you see in the movies when those UFOs have that um, UFOs when they come in a disc form, that's how Ezekiel was seeing these things. So like you see the disc form, like a wheel in the middle of a wheel, in the same place where the mouth comes out of. So that's how he sees it. All right. Right. It says when those went, these went, and when those stood, these stood, And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up over against them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels, right? And these this is what the prophets were seeing, UFOs. And for the longest, brothers that have been diligent, the elders have been bringing this truth out, and people have been mocking this. Okay, for the longest, this was, when you believed in UFO, you were the mo you were the village idiot. Okay, you were the retard that was always, yammering on about UFOs. But now, what are they doing right now? Now they are taking it seriously, because that is what prophecy does. Right? These men, they want a world where they want to have control of truth, but truth doesn't belong to any man. You can't have control of truth. Yeah. And very soon, the fullness of every prophecy about these chariots will come to pass. So see, now it's them acknowledging that, okay, there's an unidentified phenomenon, but the time is coming when they're gonna the majesty of the chariots as described in the scriptures will be witnessed by all men. The living creatures, which are the angels in them chariots, will be made manifest to all men, and the deliverance of men through that chariots from the ICBMs, as foretold in the scriptures, would also be a witness unto every man. All right. So with that, brothers, gotta stay strong, man. This scripture is alive, man. This scripture is real. Everything that it speaks of is truthfulness. There's nothing fable about the scriptures. So, with that, I hope edification goes out. With the brothers who are listening, I want to say shalom. Yahweh Bashim Shah Barakatham. To the few aquas that are also listening in truth and sincerity, I also want to say shalom. Yahweh Bashim Shah Barakatham. I was a bit slow off on this lesson, but I still hope edification goes out. Lord willing, edification goes out. So until the next one, I want to end it right there and say shalom.